Have you ever read a book or watched a movie where things got so dark, so bad, so seemingly hopeless for the main character that you almost stopped, where the pain felt too heavy, the obstacles too high, the odds too impossible? You remember that feeling, right? That moment where you thought, this is too much. This can't possibly get better. I can't keep watching this. I can't keep reading this. Because if it doesn't turn around soon, I don't know if I can take it. And then you kept going. Maybe someone told you, stay with it. It gets better, just don't stop now. And you trusted them. And somewhere in the final act, everything turned. The thing that looked like the end was actually the turning point. The thing that looked like the worst moment was actually the moment everything changed. The betrayal led to the blessing. The loss opened the door. The breakdown was actually the beginning of the breakthrough. What felt like an ending was actually the setup for the most important part of the story. You've experienced that. Maybe in a book, maybe in a film, maybe in your own life, looking back on a season you thought would destroy you that God used to define you. We all have. Now here's the question I want to sit with you in today. What if your life is that story right now? What if you are in the middle of the darkest chapter, the one that feels like it's never going to resolve, and you're on the very edge of closing the book? What if the good part is 3 chapters away, and you're about to miss it? What if the answer to that prayer you've been carrying for years is almost here, and the enemy is working overtime right now, specifically because he can see what you can't yet see? I believe, with everything in me, that one of the enemy's most effective strategies is not what most people think. It's not just temptation. It's not just distraction. It's this: convincing people to quit before the breakthrough, to walk away from the story God is writing right before the turn, to abandon the marriage before restoration comes, to leave the calling before the fruit arrives, to stop praying right before the door opens, to give up on the dream right before God breathes life into it, to close the chapter 3 pages before everything changes. And today, I want to grab you by the shoulders, look you in the eyes, and say with everything I've got, don't give up before the good part. Because God is writing your story, and He is a masterful author, and the pen is still in His hand, and it is not over. Stay with me. If you are currently in a chapter of your life that you don't understand, or that you're ready to walk out of, I need you to drop a comment right now and say, I'm still reading. Because you being here today is not an accident. And I want you to subscribe and stay in this community, because we do this every week for people who need a word right where they are. Let's go. Section 1. The God Who Writes Stories. Before we talk about your story, I want to talk about the author. Because who is writing the story determines whether you can trust the story. Think about that for a second. If a random stranger handed you a manuscript and said, "Here, this is the story of your life," you'd probably be terrified. Because you don't know them. You don't know their intentions. You don't know if they're careless or cruel, or just indifferent to how the story ends. But what if the person handing you that manuscript was the most brilliant, most loving, most intentional writer who had ever existed? What if the person holding your story knew the end before they wrote the first word? What if they had never once failed to bring a story to a redemptive conclusion? What if they were not just skilled, but deeply personally invested in how your story turned out? That changes everything. Isaiah 46 verses 9 and 10. God says, "I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Read that slowly. He makes known the end from the beginning. He doesn't write chapter 1 and hope for the best. He sees the whole story, simultaneously. Every chapter, past, present, future, is present to him right now. He's already read chapter 40 of your life. He knows what chapter 17 resolves into. He knows what chapter 27 looks like when the dust settles. He knows the ending. And he writes every single chapter toward it, with perfect purpose. This author never has writer's block. He never loses the plot. He never runs out of ways to redeem a storyline. He is never surprised by the plot twist, because he knew it before the story began. Think about how comforting that actually is. Every time life has thrown something at you that felt like a curveball, it wasn't a curveball to God. Every time circumstances shifted in a way that made no sense, God was not scrambling. He wasn't in heaven saying, well, I didn't see that coming. He was already 3 chapters ahead, weaving something together that you could not yet see. And his purpose will stand. Not sometimes, not usually. It will stand. It doesn't get derailed by your mistakes. It doesn't get rerouted by your detours. It doesn't get undone by the actions of people who hurt you, the chaos of the world around you, or the seasons where your own faith felt like it was barely a flicker. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the comfortable things, not the things you planned. All things, the good chapters and the hard ones, the chapters of breakthrough and the chapters of waiting, the chapters where you shone and the chapters you would rather tear out and throw away, the chapters that made you proud and the ones that made you feel ashamed. In all of them, he is working, with intention, toward good. That word, good, it doesn't always mean easy. It doesn't always mean comfortable. But it means purposeful. It means redemptive. It means nothing in your story is wasted. Not the betrayal, not the loss, not the failure, not the years that felt like they disappeared. Nothing is wasted. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Hope and a future. That is the destination he has written for you. Not a story that ends in shame. Not a story that ends in defeat. Not a story where the enemy gets the final word. A story that ends in hope. In a future. He wrote that ending before you took your first breath. Now here's what I need you to understand about good authors. They don't always take the straight line from beginning to end. The best stories have twists. They have setbacks. They have moments where everything seems lost, because that tension is what makes the resolution so powerful. If you read a novel where the main character never struggled, never failed, never hit rock bottom, you wouldn't feel anything when they won. The cost is what gives the victory its weight. The darkness is what makes the dawn feel like a miracle. Your story has tension in it right now. But tension is not the end of the story. Tension is what makes the story worth telling. And one day you will tell it. You will sit across from someone who is in the middle of their dark chapter, and you will say, "Let me tell you what God did for me." And they will weep with relief. Because your story of survival becomes someone else's permission to keep going. Hold on to that. Section 2. What happens mid-story? Learning from biblical characters. The Bible is not a collection of perfect people living perfect lives. It is a library of people who were in the middle of their story, couldn't see the ending, and had to choose again and again whether to trust the author. Let me walk you through some of them, because I want you to see yourself in these pages. Joseph, Genesis 37 through 50. 17 years old, favored son. God gave him a dream, a real one, the kind that gets into your bones and stays there. His brothers would bow before him. His future was lit up like a sunrise. And then, his own brothers, the people who were supposed to protect him, threw him into a pit. Then they sold him into slavery. Then he was purchased by Potiphar. He worked hard. He kept his integrity. He rose in the household. And then Potiphar's wife lied about him, and he was thrown in prison for something he didn't do. And he sat there, and sat there, and sat there. 13 years from the dream to the palace. 13 years of pits and slavery and false accusations and prison walls. 13 years of silence from heaven. 13 years of waking up every morning wondering, God, was that dream even real? Did you really speak to me? Because if you did, where are you right now? Can you feel that? Can you feel the weight of 13 years of waiting? Some of you have been waiting for 5 years. Some of you for 10. Some of you feel like you've been in a pit that has no bottom. And I want you to hear this. Joseph had no idea what was happening while it was happening. He couldn't see that every chapter of pain was preparation. He couldn't see that the prison was where he would meet the cupbearer, who would eventually remember him to Pharaoh. He couldn't see that the suffering was building a character in him that could handle the platform that was coming. He couldn't see that the pit was not a detour. It was the road. And then, one day, everything turned. In a moment. Pharaoh had a dream. The cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph interpreted the dream, and he went from prison to second in command over all of Egypt, in a day. What took 13 years to build up to shifted in a day. And when his brothers came to him years later, terrified, expecting punishment, Joseph said this, Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You intended it for harm. God intended it for good. The same event, two intentions, 1-1. And it was never a question of which one would win. Every painful chapter had purpose. Every pit was positioning. Every prison was preparation. Your pit is not your ending. Esther, an orphan. She lost her parents young, raised by her cousin Mordecai, a foreigner living in a land that was not her own. No political power, no obvious destiny. And then, through a series of events she never planned, she became queen. But even that wasn't peace, because Haman rose to power and signed a death warrant for her entire people. And Mordecai came to her and said, You have to go to the king. And she said, If I go uninvited, I could be killed. And he said, Esther 4:14, For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? For such a time as this. She didn't plan to be queen. She didn't plan to be in a position to save her people. She didn't understand why her life had unfolded the way it had. But God was positioning her the entire time. Every loss, every transition, every season that felt like it made no sense was getting her to the exact place she needed to be, for the exact moment that required her. There is such a time as this in your story, too. The season you're in, the one that feels random or hard or confusing, is not random. You are being positioned, you are being prepared for a moment that requires exactly who you are. Ruth, a widow, young, childless, living in a foreign land. Her husband was dead. Her future was uncertain. Her security was gone. She was just surviving, just putting one foot in front of the other. She followed her mother-in-law Naomi back to Bethlehem, and she went to work in the fields, gleaning grain just to have enough to eat, just surviving, just making it through the day. And one day she happened to be in the field of a man named Boaz. Happened. That word is doing so much work in that story. Because nothing happened by accident. God had woven a path that led Ruth to that specific field, on that specific day. At the exact moment Boaz would notice her. What looked random to Ruth was divine positioning to God, and Boaz redeemed her, married her, gave her a son. And that son's name was Obed. And Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. And from the line of David came Jesus. Ruth, a widow who was just trying to survive, ended up in the lineage of the Savior of the world. She thought she was just making it through another day. God was writing legacy. Your story is bigger than what you can see right now, far bigger. Lazarus, John 11. Jesus received word that his friend Lazarus was sick. And John 11:6 says this: When he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. He heard and he waited. He could have rushed to heal him. He could have spoken the word from where he was. Instead, he waited, and Lazarus died. And by the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. And Martha came out to him, weeping, and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And you can hear the grief in that, the confusion, the where were you, God? Why did you let this happen? Why didn't you come sooner? Maybe you've said that prayer. Maybe you're saying it right now. And Jesus looked at her with full knowledge of what was about to happen and said, Your brother will rise again. And he went to the tomb, and he called Lazarus out. And a dead man walked out. Here is what I need you to understand about that story. If Jesus had healed Lazarus when he first heard he was sick, it would have been a miracle. But it would have been a smaller miracle. The waiting, the 4 days, made the miracle bigger. It removed every possible explanation except one. God did that on purpose. Sometimes God doesn't rush to your situation because he's building something bigger. Sometimes the delay is not neglect. The delay is setup. The delay is because what he's about to do is going to be so undeniably him that no one will be able to explain it away. Your delay is not abandonment. It might be a Lazarus moment. Section 3. Why we want to give up mid-story. Let's be honest with each other for a few minutes, because I think pretending the hard parts aren't hard doesn't help anyone. There are real reasons we want to quit. Real, legitimate, understandable reasons. And I want to name them. Not to validate giving up, but to look them in the eye and tell the truth about them. The wait is exhausting. Waiting is one of the hardest things God ever asks of us, because we are wired for resolution. We want to know, how does this end? We want a timeline. We want progress we can see. We want confirmation that the prayer is working, that something is shifting, that this isn't all just disappearing into silence. And when the wait stretches, when weeks become months, become years, it wears on you in ways that are hard to describe. It's not just impatience. It's the grinding weight of unanswered hope. Psalm 27:14. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Wait, be strong, take heart, wait again. David wrote that as instruction, but also as survival. Because waiting for God requires active faith. It's not passive. Waiting on God is one of the most aggressive spiritual postures you can take. Because while you're waiting, the enemy is whispering that it's never coming, that you were foolish to hope, that God has forgotten you. And choosing to wait anyway, in faith, in prayer, in trust, is warfare. Don't let anyone tell you that waiting on God is weak. It is strength. The story doesn't make sense. God does not always explain what he is doing while he is doing it, and that is deeply uncomfortable. We want the chapter notes. We want the author's commentary, explaining why this is happening and what it's leading to, and how long it's going to last. But God rarely works that way. Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. His ways are higher, which means sometimes you are standing at the base of something so large, you cannot see its shape. You are living inside a chapter that you cannot understand from inside it. The only way to understand a chapter is to finish the book and look back. And one day you will look back. And it will make sense. Maybe not all of it, but enough of it. Enough to say God was there, he was working, it wasn't wasted. You won't always understand while you're inside it. That's not a failure of your faith. That is the very definition of faith. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Not what you do see, what you do not yet see. Comparison kills faith. Other people's stories look like they're moving. Theirs looks like answered prayers and open doors and provision and breakthrough. And yours feels stuck. Stuck in the same problem, the same season, the same unanswered question. And something in your heart starts to whisper. Maybe it works for them, maybe God shows up for them, but not for me. And I need you to hear this clearly. You are not looking at their whole story. You are looking at their highlight. You are comparing your behind the scenes to their stage. You are comparing your chapter 14 to their chapter 31. Your timeline is custom, uniquely crafted, for the specific work God wants to do in you, through you, for the people he has assigned to your story. Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. His purpose for your life is not on their timeline. Stop comparing chapters. You've been disappointed before. This one is real. Hope deferred, Proverbs 13:12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. It doesn't say hope deferred is sin. It says it makes the heart sick. Because it does. When you've believed for something, prayed for something, trusted God for something, and it didn't come the way you expected. Something in your heart contracts. A little bit of self-protection kicks in. And the next time an opportunity for hope comes, you hold it a little looser. Because you don't want to be hurt like that again. I understand that. But I want to offer you this. Disappointment is not evidence that God failed. It is evidence that you are human, and that you've been through something hard, and that you've kept going anyway. Some of the most faithful people in Scripture were deeply acquainted with disappointment. Hannah, who prayed year after year for a child and wept until Eli thought she was drunk. David, anointed as king and then sent back to the fields. The disciples, who watched Jesus crucified and believed it was over. And in every case, on the other side of the disappointment, God was not finished, He was not done. And He is not done with you. Disappointment is not your ending. What chapter are you in right now? Drop a word in the comments, just one word. Waiting. Fighting. Confused. Holding on. Just name it, and share this with someone who needs it tonight. Section 4. The Anatomy of a Turning Point. I want to spend some time here because I think this is important. Because we talk about the turning point like it's obvious when you're in it. But it usually isn't. Most turning points don't announce themselves. Most of them arrive quietly, or in the middle of something that still looks like a mess. Most of them are only recognizable in hindsight. Think about the Red Sea. The Israelites were not standing at a beautiful parting of the waters, applauding God's dramatic timing. They were standing at the water's edge, with Pharaoh's army behind them, and there was nowhere to go. The turning point looked like a trap. It felt like they were finished. And then God moved. Think about the disciples on the road to Emmaus after the crucifixion, 2 of them walking away, dejected, saying, "We had hoped that He was the one who was going to redeem Israel." Had hoped, past tense. They were walking away from Jerusalem because to them, the story was over. They had given up, and Jesus walked up next to them, and they didn't even recognize Him. They were so deep in the grief of what they thought was the ending, they couldn't see the resurrection standing right next to them. That stops me every time. How many times have we been walking away from something, convinced the story is over, and the resurrection is right next to us, and we can't see it because our eyes are full of grief? Hold on to this. The turning point is often closest when things feel the most stuck, when the pressure is the highest, when the darkness feels the deepest. That is not always a sign that God has abandoned the story. It may be a sign that the turn is near. Section 5. How to trust the author. When you can't see the plot. So how do you actually do this? How do you stay in the story when every part of you wants to walk out? Let me give you 5 anchors. Anchor 1. Read other endings. Open the Bible, not just for new content, but to remember how God writes. He writes redemption. He writes restoration. He writes beauty from ashes, Isaiah 61:3. He writes things together for good, Romans 8:28. He writes weeping in the night and joy in the morning, Psalm 35. Read the stories of Joseph and Ruth, and Esther and David and Lazarus. Read them as evidence of how this author writes. And then apply what you know about how he writes to the chapter you're currently in. He has not changed. He has not gotten worse at this. He is the same author, writing the same way in your story. Anchor 2. Remember your own past turns. You have already survived chapters that you thought were endings. Sit with that. Think back specifically to a time in your life when things looked like they were falling apart, and God showed up. Not vaguely, specifically. The job that fell through that led you to something better. The relationship that ended that protected you from something worse. The door that closed right before you walked through it into something that would have hurt you. The moment that felt like loss and turned into a gift. You have evidence. Your own personal, documented, lived evidence of how God writes your story. Don't let the current hard chapter erase the testimony of every chapter that came before it. Write it down if you have to. Literally make a list. Times God came through, times He turned it around, times what looked like an ending wasn't. And when the enemy whispers he won't show up this time, you look at that list and say, He has never failed me yet. Anchor 3. Declare the ending before you see it. This is faith in action. Romans 4:17. God calls into being things that were not. And Abraham, in the same passage, against all hope, in hope believed. Against all hope, in hope believed. When the circumstances said it was impossible, he believed anyway. Not because the circumstances changed, because he knew who made the promise. Speak your ending out loud, not as wishful thinking, as declaration. Say, I will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. Say, what God has promised me will come to pass. Say, my story is not over. The good part is coming. You might be the only one saying it right now. Say it anyway. Faith speaks before it sees. Anchor 4. Do the next right thing. You don't need the whole plan. You don't need to see all 40 chapters at once. You just need to know what the next step is. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. He will make your paths straight. But the promise is connected to submission. Do the next right thing in front of you. Serve where you are. Be faithful in the small thing. Keep your commitments. Keep showing up. Do the next right thing, even when the next right thing doesn't feel like it's connected to the breakthrough you're waiting for. Because God connects the dots, you just have to keep showing up. Anchor 5. Stay connected to the author. Don't go silent in the hard chapters. This is where so many people make the mistake. When life gets hard, when prayer feels like it's hitting the ceiling, they pull back. They go quiet. They stop going to the Word. They stop talking to God. Because what's the point if He isn't answering? And I want to say, with as much love as I can, that is exactly what the enemy wants. He wants to isolate you from your source. Because a disconnected branch cannot bear fruit. John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Remain. Even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when you're not getting the answers you want. Stay connected to the author. Because He is writing in the middle of your silence. He is working when you cannot feel it. And if you disconnect now, you miss the chapter that's coming. Stay in the conversation. Even if your prayer sounds like, God, I don't understand this. I don't feel you right now, but I'm here. I'm not leaving. Help me hold on. That is enough. That is enough. Section 6. A word for the person who has almost given up. I want to stop here for a moment, and I want to speak directly to someone. You've been strong for a long time. Longer than most people know. You've been holding on behind the scenes, in the quiet, where no one sees. You've been praying prayers that feel like they're evaporating. You've been trusting a process that has felt invisible. You've carried something heavy for so long that the weight has just started to feel normal. And lately something has shifted. The faith that used to feel like fire now feels like an ember. You still believe, but the belief is quieter now. And you've been wondering, is this what it feels like to be done? Is this what it feels like right before a person gives up? I need you to hear this. What you're describing is not the absence of faith. It is the weight of it. Carrying faith through a long season of waiting, that's not easy faith. That's real faith. Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith, is not a list of people for whom things went easily and quickly. It's a list of people who trusted God through years, through loss, through impossibility. These were all commended for their faith, and yet none of them received what had been promised. Hebrews 11:39. Some of them didn't even see the resolution in their lifetime. But they held on, and they are remembered as examples of faith. Not because it was easy, because they held on when it wasn't. I'm asking you to hold on, not forever without hope, but for one more day, and then one more after that. Because God has not forgotten you. He has not moved on to someone else. He has not lost your file. He knows exactly what you're carrying, and He is not indifferent to it. Psalm 56, verse 8. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Every tear you have cried in this season, He has seen it. Every night you've wept, He was there. Every time your faith felt too thin to hold, He was holding it from the other side. Don't give up. Section 7. The good part is coming. I want to close with this, not as motivation, not as a hype speech, as truth. As something you can take to the bank of eternity and cash. The good part is coming. Psalm 35. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. The night is real. The weeping is real. But it has an expiration. It stays for the night. Morning is coming. Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. At the proper time, His time. The harvest is real. The reaping is coming. The condition is one thing if we do not give up. Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Strength renewed. Not the strength you had before the hard chapter. New strength, stronger than before. Because you carried something heavy and you didn't let it break you. That builds something in you that easy seasons cannot build. And one day, you are going to tell this story. You are going to sit across from someone, or stand in front of a room, or record a video, or write a post, and you are going to say, "Let me tell you what God did." And you are going to tell this chapter, this one, the one you're in right now, the one that feels impossible and confusing and heavy and long. And it is going to be the part of your testimony that makes people weep, because they will see themselves in it. And your survival will become someone else's permission to keep going. Your story matters, the hard chapter and all. God is not done. The pen is still moving. The good part is coming. Don't you dare close the book. Let me pray over you. God, for the person who is exhausted from waiting, remind them that your timing is not cruelty. It is precision. For the person who has been crying in the night, let them feel you close. Let them know that you have seen every single tear. For the person who is carrying something heavy and no one around them even knows, lighten the load. Send them the right person at the right moment. Speak to them in a way only you can. For the person who is right on the edge of giving up, give them one more reason to stay, and let that reason be you. Remind every person hearing this right now, you are the author. You hold the pen, you know the ending. And it is good. Come through for your people, God, and let them see it. Amen. Before you go, 3 things. 1. Write this down somewhere you'll see it. God is writing my story. The good part is coming. I will not close the book. 2. Share this with someone who is in a hard chapter. You never know who needed to hear this today. 3. Subscribe and stay connected to this community. Because we do this every single week, for people who need a word right where they are. And comment below. What chapter are you trusting God with right now? Name it. We're believing with you. Stay in the story. The good part is coming.